noticed that we were having problems about determining when to do certain things. Specifically, like when we went into headquarters, we were like this, right? I guess I didn't really explain very well about like outside passing and stuff like that. You need to be paying attention to where people's feet are, right? If their feet are close together, I should be doing a Toreando pass, or any form or fashion where I get them offline and I come in, right? An outside passing. If their feet are closer together, right, I will have a greater impact on both of them. If his feet are wider, and I'm like, I want to move them to one side, that has a greater time that I have to cause them to travel. I have to have more effect on them. Does that make sense? Okay. If they're slightly wider, right, I can either wedge myself inside of them, causing a split, right, or I can choose a side and not allow the other side to come in, widening. Does that make sense? So if they are wider, let's say I'm trying to do outside passing and he puts his legs wide, right? I now know that I need to do something like an inside pass, right? Does that make sense? Because like if I'm here circling with me, his legs are wide, I now know I can crash in and do inside passing. Does that make sense? Perfect. If they are split like this, right? If they're like one's up, one's down, you can always either wedge in as again, or you can either like, if that side's like that, you can always kind of like trap them. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I just want you to take some time and like move around with your opponent. Right? When you see something, be like, oh, this is where I am, cool. Do I need to move this leg over and do like a leg pass, leg drag, right? Do I need to crash into it, right? Splitting the legs. Do I need to push it to the outside and start to work knee cut passing? Right? So just look at where people's legs are. If they're in front of you, boom, we can go around them, right? If they're open wider, we can be like, oh, cool, inside pass it, right? Does that make sense? So I just want you and your opponent, aka your partner, to just kind of like work that through and then look at it. I don't care if you do it. I just need you to look at where the feet are and like realize you're like, oh, what should I do? Should I clear to the side or should I crash in? Okay? All right. So that's very basic about like when you should address it. All right. Today we're gonna go over knee cut. We already talked about headquarters, right? Being right here. So we're just gonna start from here. I'm going to maintain the same kind of space in between my elbow and my knees, right? There should be nothing that should be able to enter that space. Can you put your knee in there? Right, see how they can't enter that space? And if it does enter that space on the inside, I should be able to go around, right? Because I never want it to come on this inside space like this. Now, he has a knee shield, right? Now knee cut passing, even if I accomplish it, I've done nothing. I have nothing. Does that make sense? Right, this knee shield, if he literally just comes up to his other leg, go to a turtle position basically. Who is at the disadvantage if he was attacking? I am, right? So, we never want this space to get filled. So we keep it filled. We preferably don't want this knee in there at all. But if it comes on top of us, we can crush it. Okay? Back to what we learned about the headquarter passing. Like if this is right here, right, and it's drifted over, I can always just push it down, right? So, same concept, right? It's right here. I'm getting like this. It gets too close to each other. Crush it down, right? And here you see how I'm like keeping my back kind of away. So if he tries to come up onto my back, does that make sense? So, if all else fails, you can always do a crush pass. But never give up that space in between your body and your knee. Once they control that inside space, you need to back out, right? If I'm here and I'm about to knee cut and I'm like, I'll back out, right? If they get their legs close, cool. Then I'm gonna do the smash pass, We're gonna pinch their legs together and pass it. I'll be fine. There ain't nothing he's gonna be able to do if I'm controlling his knee lines, right? But, so, we're gonna make sure we control this spot, right? What we're doing when we're knee cut passing is I'm going to pin, right? You see how my leg is coming down to the ground? See how my foot is both on the ground and my knee is also on the ground, right? I should be shooting to gain this upper body, but even if I don't gain the upper body control, if I just keep him flat, this is gonna make the pass a lot easier, right? So if it's same side, cross, I don't recommend cross side as much. You're gonna find it offers back exposure a little bit, right? But same side, not bad, right? Just beware of the underhook, right? A shallow underhook will literally do nothing. A deep underhook, you gave them your back. Does that make sense? Perfect. Okay, so I'm here. My foot is stapled, right? I'm going to try to flatten this person out, right? I'm going to drive my body towards over his body. I'm not knee cut passing out here, right? This is bad. So I need to be here. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm literally gonna take my knee, I'm gonna pop my chest basically either down or over them. Even if I don't go down with it, I wanna keep my hips low, right? And I'm gonna shake here, and then I'm gonna take that same leg and wedge it into their hip. So I'm doing that. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're gonna drive it in, swap our hip around, put it right back, right? It is quite simple. We'll do it from headquarters, right? We're getting set up, right? Come in, you see I'm maintaining this space. If I want the underhook, same thing, keeping control. Now, once we're here, you might want to establish the chest to chest, whatever you deem as your pinning mechanism. I like to get the hips under control first, and I crash them. See how my hip is on top of his hip? I'm crushing them, right? And then from here, I like to try to scoop the other side. This way I have cross pressure on the body. It's very hard for him to turn either direction. Does that make sense? You do what you want. Doing it that way is not typically the best scoring position, let's put it that way, but it is a very powerful pin. And it will lead to a very easy mount if you want to go to mount, right? So let's say I do my knee cut, I get here, right? And I get, and I crash, right here. Literally, as soon as you crash those hips over and you have this elbow anywhere up, you literally have to just lean a leg over. You will be in mount. If they grab your own leg for you, perfect. This has been one of the easiest back takes of your life. Okay, does that make sense though, what we're doing, what we're talking about, knee cut?
Can you say knee cut one more time?
Absolutely. So let's say we're here, picking the same side, right, the inside leg that I was on, right?
Yeah.
Controlling, slide, right? Slide. Tracking?
The big difference is you pull them.
Yes.
Yeah, oh my God.
All right, let's give it a try. So, we just learned how to do a knee cut, right? So just like how I was talking about, you can look at people's feet. You're gonna see when you can do a knee cut, right? So let's say we're playing guard, right? Right there, right? You see how he extended one leg to touch his elbow, like his other knee? That's a type of knee cut. I didn't need to go all the way down. If I did, I would have been very mean to his hips, right? But I could, right? But you see how I did the same exact motion. I controlled the inside space, right? And I was able to do a knee cut pass. All I did was the same thing, right? Does that make sense? Right? Anytime that you see someone's legs get that wide, right? Or their feet are more open than their knees, right? You can do this. Does that make sense? So let's say I was walking, right? He has to address it, or I'm gonna pass him, right? If he doesn't address it, I'm just gonna pass. Cool, outside pass. All right, if he does address it, he addressed it too hard. I'm just gonna go there. Anyway, so I'm looking for that moment where I can get his legs, do that, right? And then from right here, I can crash. Does that make sense? I'm looking for just enough of either this, right, or is this. Open hips, right? Open hips, you should have enough space to crash, right? This works better if one leg is inside, right? Can you stand up? It works better if one leg is inside. You can have a drastic effect on what happens. Take a lateral step. What happens to my hip? So even if he dropped right now, where is he? Right? So when we get a leg in between, right, we were like this. They put their feet on us and we were able to push one of them down in between, right? Kneecap pass. Yeah, just better. Yeah. Right? So we're looking for a leg to either be super wide or one of them in between us. That's why we're working it from headquarters. Does that make sense? Because one leg is already owned in between. Tracking? Cool. Cool. All right. So the next thing. So we just talked about knee cut passing. On the previous one, we talked about smash passing and all that kind of stuff. Really depends on where people's feet are. Trying to get that lesson today, right? If I wanted to smash this person into a mount position basically from here, I'm going to drive, almost like a knee cut, and then I'm going to put my foot on the inside position here, right? I cannot give up the underhook position from here. If I do, I am in trouble. I should be either to his hip or driving that shoulder down, right? If I can get both feet inside, this is the way, right? I'm in mount. Whether or not it looks like I'm in mount or not, sorry. All right, I am in mount. Does that make sense? For me to be in mount, I literally just slide my legs. Cool, right? Does that make sense? So what I'm doing, I'm pressing down, and I'm inserting this knee. See how I split his legs? Right, this is kind of a different rendition of doing a smash pass on his knees. I'm splitting his legs, but after I split his legs, I'm going to grab, aka work to the inside position, right? I can literally just drive it up and then drive my knee in, right? And you see how I was nice and I went on the outside of this, right? Keeping one inside positioning with my other foot, right? Mean version, put both your knees in there and then split them like a log, right? Now, this is less mean because I'm not driving on his chest, but you need to have chest connection, right? You should be driving into them, splitting them, right? And realistically, you can electric chair someone from here. Don't do it, it's not classy. I'll electric chair. Oh, shit.
All right.
Make sense? You're doing a vertical extension, not horizontal. Horizontal would be this, banana split. Electric chair, vertical extension. Make sense? Don't do it to people. You can, right? It doesn't always work on people. That's why I don't like emphasize it as an actual submission, right? Some people can do the splits, no problem. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Yeah, exactly. I don't like it. All right. So we're gonna be here. All right. Getting in that headquarters position. Break them down to one side, right? I don't care. He could be pushing on my knee or whatever he wants, right? My main goal is actually just to split his legs, right? And from this leg split, to maintain this kind of downward pressure, make sure he doesn't actually get up, right? And then I can come either back inside, right? Or I can come on top, back inside. Make sense? But your main goal is to get both knees onto the inside position. This is the equivalent of mount, right? This too can be the equivalent of mount. I just like the other one more. I think it gives you way more control of the person, gives you more finishing options, etc. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, one last time, so you guys can see it. Come here, control it, swap this leg into the inside positioning, right? Make sure you keep the chest in control, right? And then, you see I lean forward a little. I work to gain that inside positioning, right? If you have to step back, you can do that too. See how I have both on the inside, right? And I start to square up even more. Me, personally, I like this. This sucks, doesn't it? Right? And I'm not even doing anything meat. I just squared up. Okay, give it a try.